Our Scenery Park youth are planning to light candles tonight. This in memory of the 21 teens who lost their lives in the eNCA Tavern Tragedy. Authorities have shut down the shebeen and are investigating the cause of death. Senior reporter Aviwe Mtila has been following the story for us and joins us now. Good morning, Aviwe. Theories are abound as to what exactly happened to these teens, but many are alleging some sort of a toxic substance that could have been sprayed. What do we know now?
Please be aware. Please be aware. Never please be aware that what we are trying to
Aviwe, I don't know if you can hear me. I'll repeat the question. Do we have any new information as to what exactly led to the death of these teens?
Fundo, I can hear you now, and suggestions, of course, have been ruled out that the stampede, that especially the hundreds that were here exactly where I'm standing, that was not the cause. In fact, it was ruled out by the Safety and Security MEC in the Eastern Cape, Aviwe Mtila, who says that even upon inspecting the bodies of these young teenagers, there were no injuries. That suggested that it could have been something that they either inhaled or either consumed. I actually want to take to give you a broader look of this tavern and where it's situated. You'd understand the crowds that were mentioned in the dozens were actually in the area that you're seeing now. But the actual tavern itself, Mfundo, it's situated in between houses in a residential area, basically closed off on either ends. You literally have to walk in a small, narrow passage to actually get in the tavern. The double-story building that you see now and the windows that my colleague Ntlangani is showing you are just some of the windows from the upstairs of the tavern where some of the patrons are said to have been jumping off. That's, of course, after even speaking to the entertainment manager that suggested that there was some form of tear gas that was sprayed inside that led to these children falling. It wasn't because of the crowds, he says, because he's saying that they were falling randomly. They weren't being pushed, they weren't being stamped on, but they were just falling. Some of those conversations that we had even with the parents just yesterday that suggested that upon viewing the deceased, they teenagers, they see that these children had no injuries, in fact, so a stampede has been ruled out in terms of what led to the death. Now it will be up to forensic experts to comb through the scene, give a detailed analysis on exactly what led to these deaths. We're still showing you just the scene and around eNCA Tavern, how it looks. It's in a residential area. The only space that you see is this form of cul-de-sac over here where the hundreds were gathered outside. I remember speaking to one of the grade 11 learners who said she didn't even make it inside because of the crowds that were outside. In fact, she was trampled upon outside where you're seeing this very moment, and she was luckily dragged by one of the neighbors, taken home, which is about some 100 or so meters away from here, where she is still recovering, unable to walk properly. The police that you see here have been on alert and guarding the tavern since the incident happened, Mfundo, given that there have been threats to burn down the tavern. Even the youth, as they marched through the streets of Scenery Park yesterday, suggested that they want to come here. They want the tavern owners to take ownership of what has happened. And in fact, there were those threats and suggestions that they want some sort of chaos to happen here. Hence, you see the police deployment that's here being deployed 24 hours a day, standing firm here for whatever may happen, Mfundo.
Aviwe, there seems to be two versions that are gaining traction, if I will. We've got the one that perhaps there was something inhaled at those premises there at Nyobeni, some sort of tear gas or pepper spray. But then there's another version as well that possibly the teens consumed a very toxic substance where they were still enjoying their pens down at the park. Have any young people spoken to you perhaps about taking something at the park before they arrived?
Not at the park, Mfundo, from the young ones that we've been speaking to. There are those talks of possibly a tear gas that was sprayed inside. None have confirmed what may have happened at the park, but we do understand they got here around midnight, coming from various places, as there was some form of celebration here, and they know eNCA Tavern to close in the early hours of the morning, around 5 a.m., we're told by some of these neighbors. So the version that we have got, but in fact, the MEC, Safety and Security MEC, Aviwe Mtila, suggests that while it may not be a stampede, it's either something that these children consumed or either inhaled. So that possibility is not being ruled out. But of course, we'll leave it to the forensic experts to give more detailed understanding to exactly what led to the deaths of these 21 children. You do understand it's teenagers. That's the first question that would come to mind as to why are 13 to 17-year-olds allowed inside such an establishment? Secondly, why are they even being sold alcohol at this establishment? Those are some of the questions that we posed to the owner yesterday, Vuyisek Andev, who said that while she wasn't here, the bouncers are rigorous in terms of checking who comes in and out, and saying that the majority of the people that were here on the day were actually above the ages of 18. But I put it to her, how then, if they're all above the ages of 18, are all the deceased 21 teenagers aged between 13 and 17? Something that she says that it was when the crowds were coming in. But of course, it really begs deeper questions, because it can't be, Mfundo, that everyone that passes at this establishment is under the age of 18, and something that the parents themselves that say needs deeper inspection and introspection. Liquor Board needs to answer as to how are these taverns not regularly checked. For example, how are they? It's known that eNCA closes around 5 a.m. The neighbors are saying that they've laid various complaints to the Liquor Board. They've written affidavits. In fact, speaking to the youth even yesterday, saying that they have gone hand in hand with the neighbors, going to the police, reporting this. I remember some saying that just 3 weeks ago, they were at the police station where they wrote down affidavits complaining about eNCA Tavern 1. It's in a residential area, as my neighbor Ntlangani was showing you just now. Secondly, the trading hours that they supersede and go beyond, and just the allowance of young children at this tavern. You'd see the pictures on social media as they try to promote their tavern, how young the patrons are. So those are the complaints that have been going unheard. Hence now tragedy has befallen the community of Scenery Park, happening at eNCA Tavern.
And then just in closing, talk to me or just give us the details around the ceremony today by the young people themselves of Scenery Park.
They were quite disgruntled. They marched, I remember, right after a community meeting that happened at the Scenery Park Stadium, as we thought that meeting was done, given that there were loud hailers and directives given to the community. We then saw scenes of these young youth of Scenery Park marching down the streets. At first they said they were headed to this tavern, hence you see this police deployment here that is stationed 24/7 to prevent such incidents, because you remember this is an active crime scene. No one is allowed to pass through the barricades that are there. They then headed to the police station where they said they want a formal march, but they said they weren't met by the police in terms of that. So now they're planning a night vigil. We do understand at 6 p.m. these youth of Scenery Park will be having a candlelight ceremony to remember the fallen 21 teenagers. Remember, these are just some of the 9 girls and 12 boys that died at eNCA Tavern, still unexplained, Mfundo, as to what exactly led to the deaths of these teenagers aged between 13 and 17. A lot of questions still needs to be answered, Mfundo, but we do hear from Minister Pegikela that there's a police deployment, national forensic experts that we're expecting to comb through the scene and give a better understanding to exactly what led to these deaths. Because we've been speaking to even some of the parents, meeting them at Woodstock mortuary where the bodies of these children are. They're saying that in viewing these kids, there are no injuries to them. That suggests that there was no stampede, as much as there were a heavy crowd in here, in and around, especially outside where we currently are at the moment. There are no suggestions that there was a stampede. And even the owner blaming some of this to the bouncers in terms of them closing the doors. There's suggestions that then there was this tear gas that was deployed, but all of those hopefully will be answered in the coming days, Mfundo, to exactly what happened here, because it's mind-boggling at this stage.
It most certainly is. A lot of answers needed. Aviwe, thank you very much for that update. That's senior reporter Aviwe Mtila.